Hey Guy, welcome back to Sleep Among Titans, where we drift through strange and quiet corners of the past, perfect for listening before you sleep. Alright, tonight we're going to talk about a group of people you probably don't associate with a good night's rest, the Vikings. Yeah, them. The ones with the axes, the longships, the generally poor attitude towards coastal monasteries. I'm going to make a pretty bold claim tonight. I believe these people in their cold, hard world had some of the best, most restorative sleep in human history. Better than us with our memory foam mattresses and our 8-hour-long soothing rain sounds, videos on YouTube. To understand why, I just want you to picture it. Don't try too hard, just let the image form. It's a long night in what will one day be Norway. The wind is a living thing outside howling over the fjord. But in here in the Longhouse there is a deep shared warmth. The great fire in the centre has died down to a bed of hypnotic glowing embers, painting soft orange shadows on the timber walls. The only sounds are the whisper crackle of the coals and the slow rhythmic breathing of 30 souls nested together in the dark, safe, secure, deeply, deeply asleep. How? In a world of such brutal hardship, how did they master the one thing we seem to have lost? Their secret wasn't just one thing. It was woven into the light of the sun, the very exhaustion in their bones, and even the food they ate for dinner. So get comfortable. If you enjoy these quiet journeys, a gentle tap on the like button or a subscription lets me know you're out there listening in the dark. It helps more than you know. Now, let's settle into that longhouse and talk about the sky. The Viking sky was their clock, their calendar, and most importantly, their off switch. The single biggest reason their sleep was so profoundly deep is because of what they didn't have. They were blissfully totally free from the greatest enemy of natural rest ever invented, the light bulb. And by extension, the little glowing rectangle you're probably listening to this on right now. It's okay, no judgment. See, your brain has an ancient built-in clock, the circadian rhythm. When your eyes see darkness, your brain is supposed to get the memo and release the get-sleepy hormone melatonin. For the Vikings, this system worked with beautiful, simple perfection. The sun went down and the world got properly profoundly dark. The brain received the signal loud and clear. All right, team, it's time to power down. And you have to remember where they lived. Their entire year was a dramatic story of two extremes. Imagine the Nordic summer. The sun barely sets, painting the sky for 20 hours. This was a season of almost manic energy, endless work, farming, mending, building. You worked until you physically couldn't see anymore. But then came winter, and the world flipped. The sun would make a brief, almost apologetic appearance for a few hours and then surrender to a vast, deep darkness. This wasn't a curse. It was nature's great permission slipped to rest. It was the world telling them to retreat into the warmth of the longhouse and sleep for 10, 12, even 14 hours. Their bodies weren't just tired, they were grateful for that darkness. Of course, it wasn't only the dark that pulled them under, it was what they did in the light that made the rest so sweet. A kind of physical effort that truly earned its reward. So let's talk about that reward, the sweet rest that is earned. It's one thing to say that people in the past worked hard. We all know that. It's an abstract fact. But to understand the sleep of the Vikings, you have to feel it in your bones. You have to understand that their lives weren't segmented like ours. There wasn't work time and leisure time and gym time. There was just life, and life was labour. Let's follow a man. We'll call him Bjorn. He's not a jarl, not a famous raider. He's a farmer, a fisherman, a husband, a father. He is the foundation of his world. His day doesn't begin with a digital alarm. It begins with a subtle shift in the light inside the longhouse, a change in the quality of the air. It begins with the low, impatient sound of a cow in the adjoining stall. Before his eyes are fully open, his body knows the day has started. There is no snooze button on a hungry animal. He swings his legs off his sleeping platform. The floor is cold earth, and as he stands, he can feel the story of yesterday still written in his muscles. Not a sharp pain, but a deep, resonant ache. A satisfying hum that reminds him he is strong, that he is capable. His first hour isn't spent scrolling through bad news or sipping coffee. It's spent in the cool pre-dawn air, his breath misting in front of him. He's milking the cow, his hands working in a rhythm they've known for years. The repetitive motion is a kind of meditation. Then he's checking the wooden fence around the small field of barley, finding a post that's been loosened by the damp soil. He doesn't write it on a to-do list. He just fetches his mallet and a wedge, and with a few solid, resounding thuds, the fence is secure again. The work is immediate. The problem is seen, and the problem is solved. As the sun climbs higher, the real labour begins. Today he needs timber. The long winter ate deeply into their firewood supply, and a beam in the roof of the smokehouse needs replacing. This isn't a trip to a hardware store. This is a journey into the forest. He walks with his axe resting on his shoulder. It's heavy, perfectly balanced. His son, who's maybe 12, walks with him carrying a smaller saw. The forest is quiet, filled with the smell of damp earth and pine. Bjorn isn't looking for just any tree. He's reading the forest, looking for one that is straight strong, but not so old that its heartwood will be impossibly dense. He finds a tall fir standing in a small clearing. He walks around it, puts his hand on its rough bark. He is judging its soul. Then the work starts. His feet are planted, his body angled. The first swing of the axe is a test biting into the outer bark with a sharp crack. Then the rhythm begins. It's a dance. His whole body is involved: legs, core, back, shoulders. The axe becomes an extension of his arms. Thud, chunk, breath out. Thud, chunk, breath out. It's not a frantic, angry chopping. It's measured, powerful, efficient. Sweat begins to bead on his forehead, running down his temples. His tunic grows dark with it. His world shrinks to this single repetitive task. The sound of the axe echoes in the quiet woods. There are no notifications, no distractions. There is only the tree, the axe, and the steady, powerful rhythm of his own body. After what feels like an eternity but is probably an hour, he and his son use the long two-man saw to finish the cut. The rasping sound, shick-shack, is a duet of effort. And then that magical moment, a deep groaning crack from the tree. They step back, and with a sigh that seems to shake the very air, the great fir leans and falls, crashing to the forest floor with a deafening finality that sends birds scattering into the sky. But the work is not done. Now it must be sectioned, the useful timber separated and prepared for a long, arduous drag back to the farmstead. By the time the sun is high overhead, Bjorn's body is humming with a level of exertion most of us will never feel. It's not the frantic, heart-pounding stress of a HIIT workout. It's a deep, pervasive, bone-deep fatigue. The afternoon might bring a different kind of labour, mending a fishing net down by the cold, clear water of the fjord. His larger muscles can rest, but now his hands, calloused and strong, are engaged in a patient, intricate task. His eyes, accustomed to the wide-open spaces, are now focused on the tiny knots and tears. The air smells of salt and seaweed. Gulls cry overhead. The work is still constant, but the rhythm has changed from the brute force of the forest to the patient craft of the shore. As the long summer evening finally begins to draw its golden light across the mountains, he walks back to the Longhouse. His shoulders ache, his legs feel heavy like they are made of stone, his hands are sore. He is completely, utterly and satisfyingly spent. This is the key. His mind is quiet. It has no energy left for abstract anxieties or restless thoughts. When your body has been pushed to its natural intended limits, it doesn't fight you for sleep. It begs for it. The physical exhaustion acts as a great silent wave washing the mind clean of the day's clutter. It's a state of being we try to replicate with weighted blankets and white noise machines, but his was authentic. It was the simple, profound truth of his existence. But this perfect earned exhaustion was only half of the equation. The other half was the reward waiting for him behind the door of that Longhouse. It wasn't just a shelter he was returning to, it was an embrace. He was returning to an embrace. Bjorn stands for a moment just inside the door, letting the world of the wind and the cold fall away. Here inside the Longhouse, the air itself is different. It's thick, warm, and alive. Now, for most of us listening to this, the idea of sleeping in one giant room with 30 other people, plus a few valuable animals at the far end, sounds like a special kind of nightmare. We spend so much effort seeking silence and privacy. We buy earplugs to block out a snoring partner. We complain about thin apartment walls. The thought of being surrounded by the constant, unpredictable noise of a whole community seems like the very opposite of restful. But we have to unlearn our modern assumptions. We have to understand that for Bjorn this wasn't a lack of privacy. This was the very definition of security. The first thing that greets him is the warmth. It's not the dry, aggressive heat of a modern furnace. It's a living warmth. It radiates from the great central fire pit, sure, but it's also the collective body heat of his entire family, his wife, his children, his parents, his brother's family, a cousin, a handful of farmhands. All of them living and breathing in this shared space create a microclimate, a shield of warmth, against the brutal cold that is always trying to press its way in through the timber walls. Then there is the smell. It's a thick, complex tapestry of scent that would probably overwhelm a modern nose, but to him, it is simply the smell of home. It's the sharp, clean scent of the pine logs burning in the fire. It's the lingering, savoury ghost of the evening stew. It's the faint, earthy aroma of the packed dirt floor and the straw-filled sleeping platforms. It's the smell of damp wool, of oiled leather, and underneath it all the simple, honest human smell of family. This combination of scents is a message to his deepest, most ancient instincts. You are home. You are with your people. You are safe. He moves toward his family's corner of the vast room. The fire is low, casting long, dancing shadows. Most are already asleep, and this is where the real magic happens, the part we would find so difficult to endure the sound. It's what I like to call the human lullaby. From a corner near the fire, his wife's old uncle lets out a deep, rumbling snore. For us, an annoyance. For Bjorn, it's a steady bass note in the symphony of the night. It means the old man, a veteran of many hard winters, is still breathing, still strong. His own son, asleep nearby, murmurs something in a dream, a fragment of a story about a fox or a ship. His wife sighs softly and turns the straw in her mattress, rustling with a gentle shush. From the far end of the hall, a cow shifts its weight, its hoofs making a soft shuffling sound on the ground. Every one of these sounds, which we would call interruptions, was a thread in a blanket of reassurance. They were proof of life. In a world without alarms or security systems, the greatest fear wasn't the noise of your family. It was the sudden unnatural silence that meant something was wrong, that a predator, human or animal, was near, that someone was sick, that the fire was out, the gentle percussion of a cough, the soft rhythm of a snore, the rustle of a sleeping child. These were all subconscious signals to his brain that the tribe was intact. The shield wall of his kin was holding strong against the darkness. For a child born into this world, it was everything. Imagine being a small child drifting off to sleep, not in a silent, sterile room by yourself, but cocooned in a human nest, surrounded by the breathing, shifting, living presence of your entire world. It is the absolute pinnacle of felt safety. This was the embrace of the Longhouse. It wasn't just wood and thatch. It was a living organism pulsing with the life of the family inside it. It banished the two greatest fears of the ancient world, being cold and being alone. Bjorn finally lies down on his own platform, the deep ache in his muscles, now a pleasant, heavy reminder of the day's work. The wind can howl all it wants. The world outside is banished. The symphony of his family plays its gentle, familiar tune around him. His body's ready, but it needs one final thing before it can truly surrender to the night. It needs fuel. Not just any fuel, but the right kind for the long, slow burn of restorative sleep. It needs fuel. And that fuel, the final ingredient in this ancient recipe for perfect sleep, was as simple and profound as everything else in Bjorn's life. Think about our relationship with the evening meal. For many of us, it's a rush. It's takeout. It's something quickly assembled, often processed and eaten in front of a screen. We finish it, and then often begin a long, restless negotiation with the pantry, looking for that sweet snack, that last cup of coffee, that little something to quiet our buzzing minds. The Viking evening meal was not a negotiation. It was a conclusion. It was the final grounding ritual of the day. As Bjorn sits on the bench near the fire, his wife hands him a heavy wooden bowl. It's warm in his tired hands. The warmth seeps into his palms, a comfort in itself. There is no complex menu. For most nights of the year, there is only one thing on offer, the great simmering cauldron that has been murmuring over the fire for hours. Inside is a thick, hearty stew, a pottage known as scouse. The ingredients are the story of their land and their labour. There are the humble root vegetables they pulled from the cold earth: turnips, onions, perhaps some hardy carrots. There is barley, a tough, resilient grain that gives the stew its body and substance. And there is the protein, maybe it's salted cod from a successful fishing trip, or chunks of mutton from a sheep that didn't make it through the winter. Every ingredient is honest. It came from the dirt, from the water, or from their own flock. He lifts the wooden spoon to his lips. The taste is not explosive or spicy. It is deeply, fundamentally savoury. It is earthy, warm, and filling. And this is where the science, which they knew nothing about but practiced perfectly, comes in. This meal is a masterclass in slow-release energy, The complex carbohydrates from the barley and root vegetables break down slowly, preventing the kind of blood sugar spike and subsequent crash that can jolt us awake at 2 a.m. The protein and fat provide a lasting feeling of satiety, a deep, comfortable fullness that signals to the body, we're good, we have enough, you can power down now. Alongside the stew there is bread, but not our light, fluffy, sugary bread. This is a dense, dark, heavy loaf, likely made from rye or barley flour. It's the kind of bread you have to properly chew. It's substantial. It's more fuel, more fibre, more slow-burning energy. And to drink water, of course. Or perhaps a cup of something that sounds strange to us but was deeply nourishing, a thin, soured milk similar to the Icelandic skyer. It's filled with probiotics, another happy accident of their diet, that kept their gut healthy, which we now know is directly linked to our mental state and sleep quality. Or maybe it was a cup of weak small ale, which was often safer to drink than questionable water, and was seen more as liquid bread, a source of calories, than as an intoxicant. What's more important is what they weren't consuming. There was no jolt of caffeine from a late-night coffee or tea. There was no deluge of refined sugar from a dessert course. The concept of eating a slice of cake or a bowl of ice cream before bed would have been utterly alien. Sweetness was a rare treat, a drizzle of honey, a handful of dried berries, not a nightly expectation. So as Bjorn finishes his meal, his body is in a perfect state for rest. He isn't sluggish or bloated from overprocessed food. He isn't wired from sugar or caffeine. His stomach is full, his blood sugar is stable, and his system has been given a clean, efficient fuel source to begin the long, slow work of repairing the muscles he spent all day tearing down. The body is ready. The machine has been worked, and now it has been perfectly refueled for the long night of repairs. Every physical box has been checked. But we all know that sleep isn't just a physical act. You can be exhausted and well-fed, but if the mind is racing, rest will never come. What about his mind, in a world so full of very real dangers? How could a Viking mind ever truly be at peace? So the mind. In a world full of real tangible dangers, how could a Viking mind ever truly be at peace? Let's be honest with ourselves. It wasn't always at peace. To pretend a Viking's mind was a Zen garden of tranquility would be an insult to the life they lived. Bjorn had worries. His worries were huge, terrifying beasts. There was the beast of a long winter and the fear that the food stores wouldn't last. There was the beast of sickness which could carry away a child in a matter of days with no explanation or cure. There was the beast of a rival clan or strange ships appearing on the horizon. These were not small fears. They were life and death concerns. But here is the fundamental difference between his mind and ours. His fears, as terrifying as they were tangible. They were problems of the physical world, and problems of the physical world could be met with physical solutions. If he feared the winter, he spent the summer working harder, felling more trees, salting more fish, mending the roof with more care. He could look at his growing woodpile and the full barrels of food and feel a measure of control. If he feared sickness, he could appeal to the gods and the wise women, yes, but he could also ensure his family was warm and fed. If he feared a raid, he could practice with his axe and shield and know that he would stand beside his brother and his cousins. His anxieties were tied to action, and at the end of a 12-hour day of relentless focused action, his mind had earned a measure of quiet. He had done what could be done. Now think about our minds. Think about the things that keep you awake at night. Our modern anxieties are often a swarm of invisible ghosts. They are abstract, pervasive, and have no simple physical solution. We lie awake worrying about an email we sent. We worry about our career path, our social standing, our digital footprint. We are haunted by the 24-hour news cycle, carrying the weight of the world's problems, climate change, political turmoil, economic instability into our beds with us. Bjorn was not lying on his straw mattress worrying about his personal brand. He was not doom-scrolling through images of other more successful Vikings on some magical glowing runestone. His concept of news was a story told by a traveller who might pass through once a season, finite and digestible. His social world was the 30 or so people in the Longhouse. His career path was to be a good farmer, a good father, a respected member of his clan. His life was incredibly hard, but it was also in a strange way incredibly simple. The objectives were clear: survive, provide, protect the family, end of list. This simplicity provided a powerful natural off switch for the mind. When the sun went down, the physical work was over. You couldn't mend a net in the dark. You couldn't plough a field. The day's labour was done, and with it the day's worries were largely put to rest. There was nothing more to be done until morning. It was a forced mindfulness dictated by the turning of the earth itself. We, on the other hand, have lost the off switch. Our work and our worries follow us everywhere on our phones, buzzing and glowing in the dark, reminding us of all the abstract problems we couldn't solve during the day. So no, Bjorn's mind wasn't empty, but it was grounded. It was a mind tethered to the real world, a mind quieted by profound physical fatigue, and a mind that was not alone in its fears. The burden of survival was shared by everyone under that roof. His fear was his brother's fear and his wife's fear. It was a communal burden, and that in itself made it lighter. His mind, while not empty of care, was at least settled. The great roaring beasts of his fears were put to bed with the sun. He wasn't haunted by ghosts, and as he lies there in the warm-breathing dark, his mind finally begins to quiet down, ready to drift. It's aided by one last crucial element, something we've lost so completely that we have to use machines to try and replicate it. The actual physical sound of true silence. The sound of true silence. It's a beautiful phrase, isn't it? But it's also a paradox. True silence isn't the absence of sound. The absence of all sound is a sterile, unnerving thing found only in anechoic chambers. True deep silence, the kind that allows the human mind to completely unclench, is the absence of unnatural sound. Just for a second, as you're lying there, try to listen. Don't just hear, but actively listen to the silence in your own room. What is really there? You probably hear the low electric hum of your refrigerator, maybe a faint buzz from a digital clock or a charging phone. You might hear the whisper of your computer's fan or the thrum of the air conditioning. Through your window you might hear the distant rumble of traffic, the drone of a plane so high you can't see it, or your neighbour's television. Our world is never ever truly quiet. We are constantly bathed in a low-frequency soup of mechanical and digital noise. We're so used to it we don't even notice it's there. But Bjorn's world was. Once the voices in the Longhouse died down, the silence that descended was profound. It was a silence so deep and so pure that it was full of its own sounds. As he lies on the edge of sleep, his hearing is the last sense to surrender. And this is what he hears. First, there are the sounds of the house itself. The great wooden timbers of the roof cooling in the night air let out a deep, soft groan. It's the sound of a great beast settling down for a long sleep. The turf on the roof, thick and insulating, drinks the night's drizzle, muffling the sound of the rain to a dull, comforting rhythmic patter, a sound we now pay for on subscription apps. And of course, the heart of the house, the last few embers in the fire pit, collapsing in on themselves with a final delicate hiss and crackle. These are the sounds of safety, the sounds of the shelter doing its job. Then there are the sounds from just outside the walls, the wind. In the summer it's a gentle thing, a soft whoosh as it moves through the thick leaves of the birch trees. In the winter it's a sharper sound, a mournful whistle as it snakes through the bare branches of the pines and over the frozen fjord. But it is always a natural rhythm. It rises and it falls a long, slow breath from the world itself. It is predictable in its unpredictability. It never has the sharp, jarring quality of a car horn or a siren. And if he were to listen even more deeply past the wind, he might hear the sounds of the wider world, the distant call of an owl, a soft hoo-hoo that echoes across the valley. Perhaps on a very still night, the impossibly distant sound of waves on the rocky shore, a rhythmic, gentle crashing that is the heartbeat of the ocean. He might even hear the howl of a wolf far up in the mountains, for us a terrifying sound, for him a reminder that the world is wild and dangerous and that he is here inside warm and safe surrounded by his kin. The sound reinforces his security. It doesn't threaten it. This is the symphony of true silence. It's a soundscape the human brain evolved with for hundreds of thousands of years. These are the sounds our subconscious mind recognizes as normal. They are sounds that don't demand our attention. They're organic, flowing and gentle. They allow the vigilant part of our brain, the part that is always listening for threats, to finally stand down. There is no sudden bang, no piercing alarm, no electronic chime programmed to hijack our attention. There is only the sigh of the wind, the groan of the wood, the patter of the rain and the breathing of his family. His body is primed, his mind is settled, and now the world itself is singing him a lullaby of wind and wood and water. All the pieces are in place. He is on the very edge of sleep, that gentle cliff from which we all must fall. and the last thing his conscious mind registers before he lets go, the very last anchor to the waking world, is the fading light and heat from the center of the room, the heart of the home, the dying embers, the last anchor to the waking world. Let your attention settle there in the center of the Longhouse floor. The great roaring fire that cooked the evening meal and held back the darkness is gone. The stories have been told, the songs have been sung. The day has been consumed, and this is what remains. It is not an ending, but a transformation. A slow, gentle closing of the eye of the day. Look closely. There is still a last stubborn flame. It's not the bright, confident yellow flame of a log just caught alight. It is a small, almost transparent ghost of a flame dancing on a blackened piece of oak. It is more blue than orange, a little flicker of energy clinging to the last volatile gases the wood has to offer. It dances for a moment, a silent, lonely waltz in the center of the vast, quiet room. It licks the air, sputters once, twice, and then, with a final, imperceptible sigh, it winks out. And now the true spectacle begins. The age of flame is over. The age of the ember has begun. The fire pit is no longer a source of active light, but a landscape of passive glow. It is a miniature mountain range seen at dusk from a great height. The half-burnt logs form charred black peaks and ridges. In the valleys between them the embers have collected, and they glow. Oh, how they glow! It is not a uniform light. It is a living map of heat. In the very heart of the pile where the heat is most insulated, there is a core of brilliant, almost white-hot light so bright you can barely look at it. From there the colour bleeds outward, softening to a rich molten orange. Further still it becomes a deep translucent cherry red, the colour of sunset seen through a cloud. And at the very edges of the pile you can see individual embers, each one a tiny breathing jewel of crimson light pulsing softly with the imperceptible currents of air in the room. It is a silent breathing creature. Watch one of those larger embers, a piece of birch perhaps. It is covered in a delicate paper-thin layer of white ash, but through the cracks in this ashen shell the deep red heart is visible. As a stray draught of air, perhaps from the sigh of a sleeping child nearby, washes over it, the red deepens for a moment. It brightens. It pulses a slow, steady heartbeat of light in the center of the darkness. Inhale. The light brightens. Exhale. The light softens. It is the rhythm of the house made visible. It is the slow, sleeping breath of the home itself. The shadows it casts are different from the shadows of the fire. The fire's shadows were sharp, wild, and dancing things that leapt and capered on the walls. The shadows cast by the embers are soft, deep, and slow. They are pools of profound darkness that stretch out from the sleeping forms on the platforms, merging them together. They blur the edges of the world, softening reality. The sharp angles of a wooden chest become a gentle curve. The familiar face of a sleeping loved one becomes a serene, impressionistic sculpture of peace. The room is losing its definition, its hard lines dissolving into a gentle dreamscape of soft light and deep shadow. And then, a tiny event in this miniature world. A log, its structural integrity finally consumed by the slow patient heat, gives way. It collapses inward with a sound that is barely a sound at all, a soft dusty thump and a faint hiss. And from this small collapse, a silent magical fountain of sparks erupts. 100 tiny golden stars fly upward into the smoky dark of the roof. They are like brief glittering insects, each one on a frantic, chaotic journey to nowhere. They float, they dance, they spin for a few beautiful, impossible seconds, and then one by one they cool and vanish, their brief, brilliant lives extinguished in the vast darkness above. The show is over. The landscape has changed. A new valley of red has opened up in the embers. Now, the final stage begins. The long fade. The heat is retreating. The warmth that once filled the entire hall is now a small, intimate circle of comfort, only felt if you are very close. The colours begin to deepen even further. The brilliant oranges are gone, surrendered to the reds. The reds themselves become darker, losing their transparency, becoming a dull, opaque, heavy crimson like old wine. The ash, which was once a delicate veil, now advances like a soft grey snow. It creeps over the glowing canyons, blanketing the light. A patch of red that was once the size of a man's fist is now the size of a coin. Then a thumbnail. Then a pinprick. The fire is pulling its light and its heat back into itself, retreating to an unseen core. The Longhouse is growing darker and darker. The last recognizable shapes are being swallowed by the gloom. The world is being erased gently. All that is left is this fading, pulsing heart. It is the last thing Bjorn's conscious mind is aware of. It is the final beautiful, mesmerizing sight before his eyes, finally close, not to be opened again until the sun returns. And then there is only darkness, a deep, profound and gentle dark. The day is officially over, the fire has slept, the last anchor to the waking world is gone, and in this perfect stillness, this perfect dark, the other world can finally open up. The world behind the eyes, the landscape of dreams, and so he sleeps. The anchor of the dying fire is cut and the ship of the mind is set adrift on a vast dark ocean. For us, this is where the story often ends. We see sleep as a passive state, a blank space between one day and the next. Our dreams, we're told, are just the brain's way of cleaning house, the random firings of synapses, the reprocessing of the day's anxieties, a private cinema of the subconscious. But for Bjorn, and for his people, this was not a blank space, it was a destination. Sleep was not an absence, but a presence. The darkness behind the eyes was a veil, and to dream was to pass through it into another world, a world as real and as vital as the one he just left. To sleep was to undertake a journey. The soul, they believed, could leave the sleeping body and travel, and in this state it was open to messages, to warnings, to wisdom. A dream was not something your mind made, it was something your mind received. Let us follow Bjorn's soul as it drifts on that dark ocean. His dream does not begin with a jolt. It coalesces slowly like mist forming over a field at dawn. He finds himself standing in his own barley field, the one he knows so well, but it is different. The sky above is a deep, starless violet, and in it hang two pale, silvery moons. The barley itself is not green, but seems to be spun from threads of dull gold, and it hums with a low, inaudible music. In the distance, where the mountain should be, stands a single, impossibly vast tree. Its branches seem to hold up the very fabric of the sky, and its roots he knows, without knowing how, run down into the deepest parts of the earth, drinking from sacred wells. It is Yggdrasil, the world tree. He is in his world, but he is also in the world of the gods. A raven, large and impossibly black, lands on a fence post nearby. It swivels its head, and its eye is not the simple black bead of a bird, but seems to hold an ancient knowing intelligence. It opens its beak, and a voice comes out that is not a caw, but sounds like the rustle of dry leaves and the crackle of wood. It speaks a riddle, a confusing phrase about a fish that swims in the air and a stone that floats on water. The message makes no sense, yet Bjorn feels a profound sense of importance, a need to remember the words exactly as they were spoken. He turns from the raven, and an old man is standing there, leaning on a rough-hewn staff. He wears a wide-brimmed hat that casts his face in deep shadow, but Bjorn can see that he has only one eye, and that single eye sees everything. It sees the past, the present, and the possible futures all at once. It is Odin, the All-Father, the Wanderer, the Seeker of Wisdom. The god does not speak. He simply raises his staff and points towards the direction of the fjord. As Bjorn looks, the landscape of the field dissolves, and he sees a vision, his own boat, its sail full, its net so heavy with writhing silver fish that the side of the boat is nearly tipping into the water. He sees the faces of his kinsmen smiling and laughing. The vision is so clear he can almost smell the salt and feel the sun. Then just as quickly it is gone, and he's back in the golden field. The old man is gone too. Was it a promise? A prophecy? A piece of advice? The dream does not explain. It only shows. This was the gift of dreams. They were a source of gefa, of good fortune, a way to navigate the uncertain currents of fate. A dream like this would be remembered, shared, and discussed in the morning. It might change the plan for the entire week, prompting an unplanned fishing expedition. Sleep wasn't just for resting the body, it was for consulting a deeper wisdom. But the gods were not the only beings who could cross the veil of sleep. The atmosphere of Bjorn's dream shifts. The golden light of the field drains away, the twin moons vanish. He finds himself in a dark, tangled forest, the same one where he felled the tree. But now the air is heavy, cold, and filled with a sense of malice. He tries to run, but his legs feel like they are made of stone. He tries to call out, but no sound comes from his throat. He is back in his sleeping body, he realizes, but he is not in control. He feels a tremendous weight settle upon his chest. It is crushing him, squeezing the very breath from his lungs. He can't move. He can't breathe. In the darkness of his mind, he can almost see a shape, a twisted pale creature, a malevolent spirit sitting on him, pinning him down, feeding on his terror. This is the Mara, the nightmare fiend, the origin of our own word for a bad dream. It is a terrifying, suffocating experience, a reminder that the spirit world held not just wisdom, but also profound danger. Even in the heart of the secure Longhouse, a soul could be assailed. Then just as the terror becomes unbearable, something shifts. Perhaps the real physical body of his wife turns and brushes against him. Perhaps a log collapses in the real fire pit, the sound piercing the dream. The connection is broken. The weight vanishes. The breath rushes back into his lungs. The terrifying forest dissolves. He is adrift again on a quiet, dark sea. The dream dissolves like mist in the morning sun. Its power remains a faint echo in his heart, a question to be pondered when the day's work begins. Their sleep was not an escape, but a pilgrimage to a world of meaning, guidance, and sometimes of peril. But even a pilgrimage must end. As the world of gods and giants recedes, the world of timber and earth slowly returns. Consciousness stirs, reaching out like a tentative hand in the dark. And the first thing it touches, the first sense that reports back from the waking world, is the soundscape. The gentle ancient symphony that has been playing all along, waiting for his return. The dream recedes. Like a great ship sailing away towards a phantom horizon, the world of gods and giants dissolves, leaving behind only a faint shimmering wake in the memory. Consciousness, the traveller returns to the shore of the body. It does not rush back. It drifts, and as it floats in that liminal space between the dream world and the waking one, it begins to listen. The first sound it registers is not from the outside world. It is the sound of the vessel itself, a low, steady, rhythmic beat. Thump, 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 thump. It is the sound of his own heart, the faithful drum that has been beating out the rhythm of his life, awake or asleep. He hears the rush of blood in his own ears, a private ocean. He hears the long, slow in and out of his own breath, a tide pulling and pushing the air of the world. Before he's aware of his name or his family or his home, he's aware of this: I am here. I am alive. Then his hearing expands by a few inches. He becomes aware of the breath of another. It is his wife sleeping beside him. Her breath has a slightly different rhythm, a different texture. It is a counterpoint to his own. And just beyond her, the impossibly soft, quick little breaths of his youngest child curled between them for warmth. This is the second layer of confirmation I am not alone. My family is here. They are safe. The sound of their breathing is the most reassuring sound in the universe. It is the quiet music of his world's continued existence. His listening sense expands further, reaching out into the darkness of the great hall. He hears the house. In the deep pre-dawn cold, the massive timbers of the roof contract. A long, low groan echoes in the high darkness above, not a sound of distress, but the sound of immense strength settling into itself. It is the sigh of a sleeping giant. A floorboard somewhere across the room creaks as someone deep in a dream shifts their weight. The sound is as familiar to him as his own name. He knows that loose board. He knows the sound of his cousin's particular whistling snore and the soft, dry cough of the old woman who sleeps nearest the wall. He's building a map of his world, sound by sound in the darkness. Each noise is a landmark, a confirmation. Everything is in its proper place. The shield wall of his kin is holding. And then he becomes aware of a new sound. A sound from outside. It must have started while he was deep in his dream journey. Rain. It is not the sharp, angry drumming of a summer downpour on a metal roof. The roof of the Longhouse is made of thick layers of turf, of living earth, and grass laid over birch bark and wood. It is an insulator of sound, a great green cushion. The rain falling on it is transformed. The millions of tiny sharp impacts are absorbed, muffled and blended into a single, continuous, deep sound. It is a soft, low, resonant thrum, a sound you feel in your chest as much as you hear with your ears. It is one of the most comforting sounds a human being can ever hear, the sound of a storm trying and failing to get in. The sound of the sky weeping while you're inside, dry and secure. It speaks of the profound difference between inside and outside, between shelter and exposure, between safety and peril. The rain whispers a single hypnotic, endlessly repeated word: safe, safe, safe. The minutes or perhaps an hour drift by. Bjorn floats in this perfect state of semi-awareness, cradled by the breathing of his family and the soft drumming of the rain on the roof. The world is reduced to this simple, perfect symphony of peace. But nothing lasts. The great wheel of the sky is always turning. And the first sign that the deep night is ending comes not from the light but from a sound. From the far end of the hall in the animal stalls, a cow stirs. It shifts its heavy weight from one hoof to another with a soft shuffling sound. Then it lets out a long, low, breathy moo. It is not a call of alarm, but a simple bodily statement of existence, a gentle complaint against the dark. And a few moments later, from a perch outside a rooster, his inner clock more ancient than any man-made device lets out a single preliminary crow. It is not the full-throated, world-awakening cry of sunrise. It is a sleepy, truncated practice run a clearing of the throat. It is the first note of the morning played while the orchestra of the night is still on stage. The soundscape is complete. The world has been reassembled note by familiar note. The mind, having returned from its voyage across the sea of dreams, finds itself in a safe harbour. It knows the ship is sound. It knows the crew is safe. And as this reassuring knowledge settles deep into his bones, another sense begins to awaken. The mind begins to register not just the sounds of the world, but the feel of it. The sharp touch of the cold morning air on an exposed cheek, and the profound, heavy comfort of the simple, potent warmth trapped beneath the layers of wool and fur. The mind begins to register not just the sounds of the world, but the feel of it. And the first thing it feels is the cold. The great fire in the centre of the hall is long dead. It is no longer a source of heat, only a pile of cooling ash. In these last hours before dawn, the Longhouse reaches its coldest point. The chill is not aggressive, but it is a deep and pervasive presence. It seeps out of the packed earth floor and radiates from the stone foundations. It clings to the timber walls and hangs heavy in the air. Bjorn feels it as a sharp, clean kiss on his face, the only part of him exposed to the room. He feels it on his eyelids, on his cheeks, on the tip of his nose. He draws a breath, and the cold air feels crisp and pure in his nostrils, and the back of his throat a stark contrast to the warmth of his own lungs. This cold is the default state of his world. It is the ancient enemy, the challenger, the thing that makes what he feels next so profoundly, exquisitely comforting. He feels the warmth. It is not a vague or ambient warmth. It is a solid, heavy physical thing. It is a pool of living heat that he has generated and captured, a fortress of comfort he has built for himself in the heart of the cold. Let us explore its layers from the bottom up. Beneath him is his mattress. It is not filled with springs or memory foam. It is a thick pallet of woven fabric stuffed tight with dried heather and straw. As he shifts his weight, he can feel the slight springy resistance of the heather. He can smell its faint, dry herbal scent, a ghost of the summer hills. It is not soft, not in the way we think of softness. It does not yield completely, but it is compliant moulding to the shape of his body, and its main purpose is not softness, but insulation. It is the foundation of his nest, a thick barrier that stops the cold of the earth from leaching away his precious body heat. On top of him lies the true source of his comfort, the wool. He is covered by at least 2, maybe 3 heavy woven wool blankets. This is not the light fluffy wool of a modern merino sweater. This is a dense, slightly coarse and wonderfully heavy fabric. It has a presence, a gravity to it. The weight of these blankets is a constant gentle pressure on his entire body. It's a feeling of being held, of being anchored to his resting place. They knew without needing science to tell them the deep psychological comfort that comes from weight, the way it calms the restless, flighty parts of the mind and gives permission to surrender. The texture is coarse, yes, but it is an honest coarseness. It is the texture of life. He can feel the individual thick fibres, the slight oiliness of the natural lanolin that makes the wool resistant to water and keeps it warm even when damp. This warmth wasn't manufactured in a factory. It was borrowed from the life of a sheep that grazed on the very hills he can see from his door. It is a real living warmth. And on top of the wool, the final layer, the masterstroke of insulation, a fur. Perhaps it is a large, thick sheepskin, its fleece deep and soft. Or maybe it is the hide of a deer he hunted himself, the hair shorter and smoother. As he curls his toes, they brush against the fur. He can feel the surprising softness of the dense undercoat and the smoother, stronger feel of the outer guard hairs. This layer does not just trap heat, it reflects it back onto him. It is an almost perfect barrier against the cold air above. He has built a burrow, a human nest. The cold can press in all it wants, but it cannot find a way through the earth and straw below, or the wool and fur above, and the furnace that powers this entire system is himself and his family. The warmth is not just his own. It is the shared heat of his wife's body next to him, and his child's small, intensely warm body on the other side. They have created a pocket universe of warmth, a small bubble of summer in the heart of a cold, damp night. He is an island of warmth in a sea of cold, anchored by the weight of wool, shielded by the memory of the wild, and fueled by the steady furnace of his own kin. He is perfectly primally comfortable. There is no part of him that is tense. His muscles, tired from the day's labour, are now completely at rest, soaking in the deep restorative heat. His body is not fighting the environment. It has found a perfect equilibrium with it. In this state of perfect physical contentment, his mind, now quiet and serene, drifts towards the smallest, warmest presence beside him. He thinks of his son, breathing soft and quick, his small hand, perhaps, clutching a fold of the woolen blanket. He pictures the child's face completely relaxed, lost in a sleep so pure and untroubled it seems like a holy thing. A sleep that all this work, all this warmth, all this community is designed to protect. The perfect sleep of a child. The perfect sleep of a child. As Bjorn lies there suspended in that perfect state of pre-dawn tranquility, his awareness unbidden settles completely on his son curled asleep beside him. In the deep soft darkness of the Longhouse, illuminated only by the memory of light, he can still see him perfectly in his mind's eye. He sees the child's face completely unguarded. The fierce concentration of his waking hours trying to master a wooden sword or learn to tie a knot has melted away, leaving behind a profound serenity. His mouth is slightly open, his lips soft. A fringe of light brown hair, still damp with the sweat of a deep sleep, is stuck to his forehead. One small plump hand is flung out above his head, its fingers curled loosely holding nothing. The other is tucked under his cheek. There are no lines of worry on his brow, no tension in his jaw. His small body is entirely given over to rest, a complete and total surrender to the quiet dark. This right here is the culmination of every theme we have touched upon tonight. This small sleeping boy is the living proof of the Viking recipe for perfect sleep. Think of the day he has had. He woke with the sun and spent his daylight hours in a state of constant motion. He was not performing hard labour, but hard play, which is a child's most important work. He ran with the dogs until his legs burned. He climbed the low branches of the apple tree until his arms ached. He wrestled with his cousins in the hay until he was breathless and laughing. His small body is just as spent, just as deserving of rest as his father's. The physical exhaustion is total. Think of his mind. It is a mind unburdened. His fears are simple and fleeting, the fear of a scraped knee, of a loud noise, of the dark beyond the firelight. And each of these fears was immediately soothed by the presence of his mother, the deep voice of his father, the simple reality of the warm, familiar Longhouse. He holds no anxiety about the future, no regrets about the past. His mind is a still, clear pool reflecting only the simple truths of his world. I am safe. I am warm. I am loved. He ate the same meal as the adults. His small stomach is full of the same hearty, slow-burning stew. His body is not fighting a spike of sugar. It is calmly using the good, honest fuel to grow, to repair, and to power his journey through the night. And the world around him, which might seem noisy or chaotic to us, is to him the very definition of peace. The snoring uncle, the coughing grandmother, the groan of the house timbers, these are not interruptions. They are the notes of his lullaby, the one he has heard every single night of his short life. They are the audible texture of safety. He is asleep in the very centre of the human nest, the warmest, most protected place, benefiting more than anyone from the shared heat and the constant living reassurance of the tribe. Even his dreams are different. As his eyelids flutter, we know he's not wrestling with prophetic visions from Odin, or fending off the suffocating weight of the Mara. He dreams in the pure sensory language of childhood. Perhaps he dreams of the taste of the wild strawberries he found by the creek, a burst of impossible sweetness. Perhaps he dreams of the feeling of being lifted high onto his father's shoulders, seeing the world from the perspective of a giant. Perhaps he's simply running through an endless field of summer grass, the sun warm on his face, the family dog barking joyfully at his heels. His dreams are not a portal to another world, but a gentle replay of the goodness of this one. Bjorn watches him, and a feeling of profound, unshakable peace settles in his own chest. This is the why. This is the reason for the back-breaking labour in the fields. This is the reason for the endless mending of nets and sharpening of axes. This is the reason for standing shield to shield against the dangers of the world. All of the hardship, all of the struggle of their entire community finds its ultimate purpose here in this one small sacred space, the protection of this perfect, innocent, untroubled sleep. This Bjorn thinks is the centre of the world. Not the world tree, not the halls of the gods, but this. The quiet breathing of a sleeping child, safe in the dark. This is the treasure the walls are built to protect the future the fields are ploughed to feed. The long, deep, restorative night has served its purpose, and as if on cue the world outside agrees. A subtle shift occurs in the darkness, a change in the quality of the air. The rain has stopped, and through the smoke hole in the roof, the deep uniform black of the sky begins to soften ever so slightly into the first faint grey promise of the morning. The first faint grey promise of the morning. It is not a declaration, it is a whisper. A secret told only to the highest clouds and the most patient observers. Down in the Longhouse, the darkness still reigns. But it is a different kind of darkness now. It has lost its absolute ink-black quality. It has become a charcoal grey, a deep and heavy shadow that has begun almost imperceptibly to thin. Waking for Bjorn and his people is not an event. It is not a violent tearing from the world of dreams by the tyranny of an alarm clock. It is a process, a slow and gentle return, a gradual ascent from the deep sea of sleep. It is the mirror image of falling asleep, and it is just as sacred. The first messenger is the light, not the sun itself, but its herald. A pale, diffused glow begins to seep into the world. It filters through the smoke hole in the centre of the roof, not as a beam, but as a soft column of grey that gently pushes back the gloom. It finds the tiny cracks between the timbers of the walls, painting thin ethereal lines of silver on the dark wood. The world is slowly being drawn back into existence, sketched out of the darkness by a careful, patient hand. As the light grows from grey to a pale, watery blue, the sounds of the morning begin their symphony. The lone rooster who gave his practice crow hours ago now finds his full voice. His cry is sharp, clear and confident, a brassy announcement that the night's reign is over. From the stalls, the animals stir more purposefully. The cow lows again, this time with more insistence. The sheep rustle and bleat their own internal clocks, telling them that the time for grazing is near. Inside the human half of the hall, the symphony is more subtle. The first sound is a cough from one of the older men. Then a deep, long, satisfying stretch from someone else, accompanied by a soft groan of contentment as they work the sleep from their muscles. There is no sense of rush. There is no panic. The day will not begin until it is ready. Bjorn's own consciousness returns in gentle waves. He is aware of the light on his eyelids, a soft reddish glow filtering through the thin skin. He is aware of the growing chorus of sounds. He is aware of the change in temperature as the world outside begins to warm, however slightly. He does not fight it. He allows himself to float in this peaceful in-between state. His body, deeply rested and restored, is now ready to accept the day. Someone, perhaps his wife or one of the other women, rises. He hears the soft shuffle of her feet on the earth floor. He hears the quiet clink of a pot, and then a sound that signals the true start of the day, the gentle scrape and clatter of new logs being placed on the embers of last night's fire. A few moments later, a puff of air from a simple bellows and the embers glow brightly once more. A tiny new flame, the child of the old one, flickers to life, and with it comes the first clean, sharp smell of wood smoke, the incense of the morning. He finally opens his eyes. The world is soft-edged and grey, filled with the familiar shapes of his home and the quiet movements of his family. He sits up, the heavy wool and fur blankets falling away. The cold air hits his bare chest, but it is no longer a threat. It is an invigorating wake-up call, a brisk invitation to the new day. He looks at his wife moving by the fire. He looks at his son still lost in the last deep dregs of his untroubled sleep. He feels no dread, no anxiety about the day ahead. He simply feels ready. The legacy of a lost sleep. And so the day begins, a day of work, of life, of struggle and small joys, just as it has for centuries. But as we watch them step out from the darkness of the Longhouse into the pale gold of the morning light, we are left with a quiet sense of reflection. We have journeyed with them through the night, and in doing so we have discovered a forgotten art form, the art of true, deep, restorative sleep. What is the legacy they have left us? It is not a monument of stone or a story of conquest. It is a quiet, haunting memory of a different way of being, a way of living and resting, that our own bodies still remember even if our minds have forgotten. It is the memory of a body tuned to the rhythms of the planet. A body that worked until it was bone-weary under the long summer sun, and then rested for just as long in the deep, healing darkness of winter. A body whose internal clock was set not by a glowing screen, but by the rising and the setting of the sun itself. It is the memory of a mind that was grounded in the tangible world, a mind that wrestled with great fearsome beasts of hunger and winter and war, but was not haunted by the swarm of invisible abstract ghosts that plague our own nights. A mind that found its off switch with the setting of the sun because the day's tangible work was done. It is the memory of a body fueled by honest food, a body nourished by the slow, steady energy of the earth of grains and roots, and simple proteins free from the jarring spikes and crashes of sugar and caffeine that disrupt our own delicate sleep architecture. It is the memory of the fortress of community, the profound instinctual peace that comes from sleeping in a human nest, surrounded by the breathing living presence of your kin. The knowledge buried deep in the oldest part of the brain that you're not alone in the dark, that the shield wall of your tribe is holding strong. And finally, it is the memory of a world where darkness was not an enemy, to be flooded with artificial light but a friend. A necessary welcome and healing blanket that gave the world and all its creatures permission to rest. A darkness that was alive with the gentle symphony of the natural world, and a portal to a dreamscape that was rich with meaning, a place of guidance and wisdom. We have built a world of incredible convenience and comfort, a world of wonders they could never have imagined. But in the process, we may have misplaced something fundamental. We have traded the deep-earned sleep of the body for the restless, anxious sleep of the mind. We have traded the comforting sounds of the natural world for the incessant hum of our own machines. We have traded the healing darkness for a world that never truly gets dark. Their lives were hard, brutal, and often short, but in this one specific, crucial aspect of human existence, they were masters. They knew how to sleep. And it is a legacy that whispers to us still in the quietest hours of the night, reminding us of a kind of peace that is our birthright if only we can remember how to find it. Borrowing an ancient slumber. And now for you, here in the quiet of your own room, the story ends. The Longhouse fades. Bjorn and his family dissolve back into the mists of the past, and you're left here in your own time, in your own bed. The warmth they struggled to create with fire and fur is yours, effortlessly trapped in the fibers of your own blankets. The safety they built with timber and shields is yours with the simple click of a lock on your door. You're the beneficiary of 1,000 years of progress. You're warm, you're safe. But perhaps tonight you can borrow a piece of their ancient wisdom. As you lie here, let go of the day. Whatever work was left unfinished, whatever conversation was left unresolved, let it be. The sun has set on those worries. They are for another day. Your only work now is to rest. Allow the darkness of your room to be a friend. Let it be a soft, heavy blanket that settles over you, giving you permission to surrender. There is nothing you need to see, nothing you need to do. Listen to the quiet. Let the sounds of your own home, your own breathing be a lullaby, a confirmation that all is well. Feel the comfortable weight of your own blankets, an anchor holding you gently in this safe harbour. Let your mind be unburdened. Let your body be heavy. Let your rest be deep and earned, not by the labour of the axe and the plough, but by the simple, profound work of navigating another day in this complex world. You have earned this peace. The night is deep. The world is quiet. It is time to sleep now. Sleep deep. Sleep among titans.